So I suppose for me, there'd always been a doing for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it was subtle, whether it was relaxation or meditation or hypnotherapy.
Mm,
But there was a doing for my behavior to subtly come across a certain way: attractive, confident,
hmm
secure. And they grew up over time, became more healthy. So I wanted to come across as secure rather than attractive and domineering in some way. So it really did grow up in a good way, but it was still a subtle mask.
mm,
And so at the beginning of going deeper and deeper in shadow work, a lot of that dropped away. And it was really beautiful because I got to see more of myself and I started accepting more of myself and appreciating more of myself.
yeah.
But also it opened up some of the shyness and insecurity that was almost hidden under the mask. The mask had been there to support.
Mm,
And there was this version of myself that was a little bit more tempered and found social interactions a little bit harder again
mm,
for a bit of time.
mm.
It hadn't been a reality for a long time, but suddenly it became like, oh, I feel kind of
Yeah.
nervous and anxious here.
Because you didn't have the mask?
Because I didn't have a mask. I dropped all the stuff away.
Yeah.
It was like, what's left? It's like, oh, wow, there is some real nervousness.
Yeah.
And then being in a relationship with that and healing that has been a real journey because I mean, in some ways it's still going on, but the moments where that really heals, there's something that's so powerful that seems to arise. Like the
Mm,
confidence in air quotations for security that arises when that becomes healed
yeah.
seems really, what you would say anti-fragile,
Mm,
right?
mm.
It becomes so robust where it just does not, there's really not a placement of any of my self-esteem outside of me, right?
Right.
Or any of my security outside of me. There's a real inherent value and security within me.
Mm,
And what I found is when that emerges, the focus socially becomes much more on others. It's much more like I, I really feel a desire to make them feel good in this social interaction.
mm,
But not for me, not so I come across a certain way, because that had been how it had been for a long time,
hmm
but simply because now I feel just really good organically.
hmm
Social interactions become something more about them
mm.
and how can I almost serve in some ways, but also be in relationship and do it in a really, really nice way. But I'm curious what your experience was like as well.
Yeah. Well, just before we get into that, and I'd like to hear more about what you mentioned. What was it like when you dropped the mask and suddenly all this extra vulnerability and insecurity that was already there really came up? Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah.
How did you confront it? What was your reaction to it?
Yeah. So for the mask to drop down, there had to be a real strong love for myself and appreciation of myself. And actually appreciation for me as I was at that time,
Hmm
which was at times vulnerable and at
Yeah.
times shaky socially, like underneath it.
Yeah.
At times not coming across as real confident or secure or anything like this.
hmm
And actually appreciating and loving even that, which was tough, because it doesn't fit into what I wanted to view myself as.
hmm
But it did start getting to a more core version of who I was that definitely felt more real and definitely felt much more exciting to be around. It was like, oh wow, there's something here that's real. It's not just a mask used to fit in that I know is going to work, that I know is going to
mm
come across well, that I know is going to be appreciated.
mm
So getting in relationship with that realness was really beautiful, but then extremely challenging because suddenly there was a wave of new emotions because now I'm exposing the realness
Mm.
every time I go out in some ways.
Yeah.
Now, in a nuanced way, this isn't just absolute authenticity where you say everything that comes to your mind,
Mm.
but in a much more subtle way. There was a real exposing up. I was just showing up fully in my energy, in the realness that was there. And there were moments where I'm like, wow, I'm really anxious
Yeah.
or really nervous in this situation. And yet that part that helped the realness come through was like supportive during those moments as well,
Mm.
And it was like, cool, great. Well, now we're at the precipice. Now we're where we need to be. Because if we're just making the mask better, it doesn't really do anything.
Mhm.
But now we're supporting this part and getting it comfortable. Maybe sometimes we're anxious. Maybe we're nervous. Maybe, you know, I wouldn't frame it this way, but there was like, maybe I'm an anxious person.
Mm.
And it was kind of an okay with me. If that's the reality of it is, okay.
Yeah.
And there was a real acceptance with that, which
Yeah.
meant that I didn't have that experience that I'm sure we've all had,
Mm.
where you get anxious and nervous, then you judge yourself for being anxious and nervous, which makes you more
Yeah.
anxious and
Just
nervous.
makes you downward spiral even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then I started valuing different traits. I started valuing genuinity, right? Being open with people and just
Mm.
showing up as best I could. And slowly that started to lead to a more and more secure version that felt stronger in that, but still kept a lot of the rawness
Yeah.
and still kept a lot of the realness that was kind of a gift that came through,
Mm.
but it was able to land a little bit more. And it was able to almost start becoming, like we spoke, an anti-fragile in social situations where not only am I going to reclaim a realness, but right now maybe I'm projecting value outside of
Yeah.
me. I'm projecting something else outside of me. I can re-own that as well.
Yeah.
So I can feel really inherently valuable, inherently secure with that realness, with that genuinity.
Mm.
And that seemed to lead to moments where I felt really just strong in me and really where I felt captivated by myself and excited by what I might say.
Yeah.
And then there are moments where the mind comes in or a part comes in. It's like, great, let's do that charisma thing. That was really charismatic the way we said that.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, 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 that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm liking the way I'm showing up, but the way I'm showing up is because we're dropping away the validation as much. We're re-owning that, the value, the security,
Mhm.
and the realness.
I guess the lie of self-esteem, from how you're putting
Mm.
it here, I guess the lie of self-esteem is that it's a feeling. Because I'm
Yeah,
sure you didn't feel like you had like crazy high self-esteem, but I would argue that it takes someone who's really confident in themselves to actually say, maybe I am an anxious person. And
yeah.
then the thing that's implied with that is, and that's okay. Like, what can be more confident than that? So me and Cameron are somewhat casual MMA fans, right?
Mm.
And if you guys don't know, there was a champion called GSP, George St. Pierre, George Rush St. Pierre. And he's, to my knowledge, the only fighter that's ever said, and this is like somebody who's in the Hall of Fame, is on the Mount Rushmore of
Yeah.
UFC fighters, would openly say in press conferences, yeah, I'm afraid of this guy. I'm afraid of losing to this guy. Now, on one level, when I heard that when I was in my jiu-jitsu days, I respected it, but I was like, oh, I could never say that because that's weak. But it's only after going through this whole cycle, and I'm sure you would agree, Cameron, because your story
Mm.
actually made me think of this. Was I able to be like, no, that's actually true strength in front of the cameras, in front of how many thousands of people live? how many thousands of people on network TV. And in front of his opponent, who's probably going to get a mental edge in some way, shape, or form by him saying that, he was like, "No, I am afraid of this person." And to give
Yeah.
you guys some context, he's only lost to one person, and then he beat that person in the rematch. And in
Yeah.
this and in this press conference, the person he said it to, he completely dominated, right? So the lie of self-esteem is that it's a feeling. The secondary lie, in my opinion, of self-esteem is that it's something that we have to do in order to have. We have to do X in order to receive this. We have to say the charismatic thing in order to be worthy of feeling good about ourselves. There is no requirement of self-esteem
Yeah.
at all.
Absolutely.
There is no requirement. Does that mean that we become megalomaniacs and we lose touch with reality? And you'll see me and Cameron, homeless and somehow saying that we're the best people, that we're like the most successful people in the world, right? There's still you still have to include reality, right? But there's no requirement for it. There's no reason why somebody who has maybe failed at everything in his life shouldn't hold himself in a very high self-esteem for no reason other than it's just more functional.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
to the point that we're saying no, or those failures didn't happen. We're not becoming disassociative. We're saying no, I did all those things, but yet still I'm here. I'm still trying. I've learned so much. It makes you more creative. It makes you more focused. It makes you better at problem solving. It means that when you have self-esteem, which is basically just self-compassion, right? You can go through a stressful time period for longer. The stress can be more acute, and you recover from the stressful event much better.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that you have to do in order to get that. Um, but to come back to you, when you finally broke through that kind of tough period where you're like, oh, maybe I am just an anxious person or I'm vulnerable, something like that, how did that experience integrate for you and change you actually moving forward?
Hmm. What makes me view the thing that self-esteem is pointing to as much more as something we're broken down into rather than holding even.
Mm,
Like I've been times in my life where I've held confidence and security and a bit of swagger
mm,
and relaxation. I felt really good. But there was a real subtle condition.
yeah.
There would be conditions in my life that would make that possible. And when those conditions weren't there, that all melted away. And what was left was an anxiousness and a nervousness that I was ashamed of,
Mm,
embarrassed about.
yeah.
And so breaking that down really started, the first thing that comes through is actual compassion, like you said, self-compassion,
Mm,
where it's like, well, maybe it is just that. Maybe I'm just nervous or shaky or anxious or whatever.
mhm,
Maybe almost like really getting comfortable with maybe I'm not this great human that might want to aspire to be.
yeah.
Maybe I'm just not even ordinary. Maybe I'm in societal context below ordinary. Maybe I, for whatever
Maybe.
reason, maybe. And actually getting really loving and compassionate towards that and actually dropping away any of the below and above, seeing a lot of that drop away
Mhm,
was like, okay, wow, now I can feel really genuine and real in myself. And now the type of confidence that seems to rise seems to be more centered around feeling really aligned
mm,
and feeling appreciative of myself and others. It seems like really seeing them
yeah.
and wanting to connect with them, or just wanting to be around them and not putting them above or below me. Whereas before that was a constant thing. It was a constant subtle, am I above them? Am I below them? How do I navigate this?
Hmm.
And instead, it's made human interaction much more exciting and dynamic and fun because
Mm.
I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm going to respond and how they're going to respond. And there's a little bit dropping away of the assumption that I can control it or know what's happening next.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of that seemed to happen first by just being really compassionate with what was arising,
Mm.
whether it was anxiety or nervousness, or sometimes I would get physical shakes, both genetically, but then it would become a symptom physically
Really.
because of the mental loop of like, oh no, the physical thing is coming, but oh, is this going to be construed as bad? Am I going to be embarrassed? Whatever it is,
Hmm.
and just being really okay with pretty much all of that, and it almost just allowed it all to relax and allowed something deeper to come through.
Mm. Yeah. It reminds me of when, if we were to speak about my kind of relation to this, it was, I just went from a paradigm of really learning about like behaviors and how to appear confident, how to appear strong, language techniques, everything under the sun, which was like objective and measurable. And it kind of worked, like socializing. But whilst I didn't identify it like a mask, what it was is it was masking me. I didn't use the word mask like you did, but it was masking me. And when I stumbled upon our big mentor, Pierre de Souza, his whole method was leading polarity first, is what you could say. Really, how we can supplement that is actually leading yourself first. So if we have a polarity in this context, it was masculine and feminine polarity. But it wasn't like this is what masculine polarity looks like and then go out and be that. It was, oh no, you need to find it because you're more masculine than you are feminine. You need to find out what that is and then you lead with that. And I went from a paradigm of just learning about behaviors, acting in a certain way, trying to do, emotional spikes or like trying to be more interesting. All of this stuff is like doing, doing, doing. And obviously, because it's coming from me, a certain amount of my personality was filtered through that. But actually, when I came to Pierre's method, it was a taking away of all of those crutches, right? That's how I
Mm,
identified it. Actually, it was crutches. For you, it was the mask. And actually, that whole year, because I was doing this in the context, I was a young guy, I was doing it in terms of trying to get more dating connections because I really, really didn't have any confidence in that era when I was basically since going into teenage years into early adulthood.
yeah,
And I went from actually being pretty comfortable in the social realm, comfortable not being myself, obviously, but still comfortable. And I was getting dates and making these connections, all this kind of stuff. It was never out and out, like I was never lying about anything. It was just like, all those behavioral charisma channels where they're like, oh, you need to do this and then you do this and this is what a confident man does and this is what all of this kind of stuff, right? It was that kind of flavor. Well, working with Pierre took away all of that. And suddenly all that was left is all of my quirks, all of my desires, all of my wants, all of everything that was me. And that was a year-long humbling process because I went from, like I said, fairly decent social competency to having no social competency because it's also because of how I was learning it, but learning those behaviors from the outside in, from the top down, I never actually changed as a person, right? Like none of that stuff was me. It was like vehicles to help. It's like when you take off the training wheels, but you haven't done the training. Suddenly you're just falling
Mm.
over. So that was a year-long process. But then after that year-long process, it culminated when I had my first girlfriend, right? Which was a really good
Yeah.
relationship at the time for me. So whether it's a crutch or a mask, if you're not actually addressing your self-esteem, like, oh, like, how is it that I actually feel? Like, what are my underlying assumptions here? What is something that I actually want? How am I actually moving through the world? How do I want to move through the world? Then, yes, you can get, like Cameron said, I mean, I was around when Cameron was doing the mask thing, right? He was getting great results in whatever social adventure he wanted to go on to. But as soon as that dropped, actually the Cameron that came out was much more real, and it was naturally much more polarizing without Cameron really being what you would traditionally call like a polarizing figure, you know, like very nice, very warm. Everyone wants to be around him. Everyone wants to be his friend. But naturally, it was like a polarizing thing, right? Exactly. And then what happens? You meet your girlfriend in this time, who after what,
Yeah.
how many years you're still together? I
3
would
years now.
argue that if you were still using the super mask thing and you were doing that Damien thing with your eyes, if you remember that,
Oh
it
yeah.
might it
Yeah.
might have not gone so well, right? Um,
Yeah.
because if you think about it, it's funny. I mean, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but Cameron really liked this character in Vampire Diaries,
Loved it. We
right?
love Vampire Diaries, me and
Yeah,
you.
we did. I was
Secret
more of a
pleasure of
I
ours.
was more of a Stefan guy, and
Yeah.
Cameron was more of
I
a
love
Damien guy.
Damon. Yeah.
But whilst there are some similarities in personality between Damon and Cameron, although Cameron's not killing anyone's brother, right? So, so let's
Hopefully not.
yeah, hopefully not, right? Um, it's like it was almost like looking back at it, like there was you, and then what you wanted to do, and then it would be like the filter of like this influence of Damon, and then you would go and do the
Yeah.
thing. Does that sound fair, or am I explaining it unfairly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was someone that I thought there was enough similarities in how I would want to be. And then it was like, all right, there's enough similarities there that let's use this as an archetype, as a way of being and
As
a
a training
model
wheel.
for how to do it. Yeah, exactly. And then that just became how I would show up.
Mm,
And it would lead to a lot of fun experiences, but certainly a lot less depth and
mm,
not really self-esteem for Cameron.
yeah.
You know, I wonder if it was the same for you when you have the training wheels, you have what to say, what to do, what it does to Aaron, who then breaks that down and goes on that year journey to something much deeper.
Actually, what it does, and I'd be interested to hear what you say, is it actually takes away from the self-esteem that you have.
Mm,
Because in some way, it's not just the assumption that you have to pay attention to, guys. Also, this is quite advanced, just as like a disclaimer. So if it doesn't come straight away, it's all good. It's not just looking at your beliefs and what is there, like the words that are said, like I believe this. It's also looking at the unsaid assumption. And what the unsaid assumption was for me was, oh, I'm doing X thing. That's not natural to me, really, right? That I had to like really train and I'm really thinking about right now. So an example would be say more statements rather than questions. Super basic, right? Because it's more polarizing, it's more engaging in a sense, right? It gives the illusion that you don't actually need the other person to validate, do you? When you're actually doing it for the other person's validation. But that's a whole other topic, right? It says, oh, wait, these things are working, but Aaron before, or whoever it is before, wasn't working. Therefore, the underlying unsaid assumption is not just, oh, I'm getting all these cool results and that's a win for me, but the authentic version of me isn't good enough for this.
yeah.
Because if that was the case, then it would have worked before. Now that there's obviously a lot of flaws in that, but that's what underlying assumptions are. They're not data based. They're just snap decisions. They're snap internal decisions where you're like, oh, this doesn't work, or this works, right? Was that similar for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love what you said about the illusion of not needing validation
Yeah.
when it's all for validation.
It's all for validation. That's the funny thing about it. That's why it's all fragile. That's why the people
Yeah,
in that space, and I'm not saying this to have a go at them, obviously, because if I was, then I'd be having a go at me and I'd be having a go at you, right? Because we used to do all that stuff too. But it's the short term. It's such short term thinking, isn't it? And I'm getting the reason why I get passionate about this is because I'm like, oh, I can't believe I didn't see this, right? But it's short term thinking. It's like, oh, like I can do this and it gets me the results. But what is that doing to my identity, to my self esteem, to me over the long term?
yeah.
But it's so
And
easy to get lost in that, isn't it? Oh, please.
it's really impossible to have a relationship as well because
Yeah.
what are you going to do? You're going to hold it forever,
Mm.
hold it for 3, 5 years, doing
Yeah.
really hard. And then you just create resentment because you feel like this person isn't here for me, they're here for the thing I've created.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault, right? I did this.
Hmm.
And I'm resentful of them for not loving me, but that's because I don't love me
Yeah.
properly.
Because you didn't give them the opportunity to even see
Yeah,
you, let alone love
yeah,
you.
just completely hidden.
Hmm.
And like you said, when you're doing that, you're strong, but you're quite brittle.
Yeah.
You know, the moment it breaks away from where you're strong, you become incredibly weak. You just collapse.
Yeah.
You know, because the thing you had created, where your self-esteem and confidence lived, was really conditional.
Mm.
And when those conditions aren't met, you're met with just what's left underneath, which is maybe the anxious, nervous version of yourself,
Mm.
where you feel a lot of shame and guilt around.
Yeah.
And when you get into that, it just really collapses. But deep down, you know that's there.
Hmm.
Deep down, you know that's what's truly you right now,
Hmm.
and you're hiding it. And so there's always that underlying unconscious split. Even when you have the dopamine of having a success,
Mm.
there's a part of you that doesn't feel that.
Yeah.
And I think it grows and grows and grows and grows. And when the dopamine, it gets a bit more normal. It's almost like they seem to balance out. And you start, instead of being met with, I'm doing really well, I'm having the results that I want, you're just increasingly more and more aware of how fake it is for you
Mm.
and how much the real you isn't being seen or met or
Yeah.
even heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I read this from a post from one of our mentors when he was going through this switch in and of himself like years ago. And he like wrote out a list of things that he was fine with, almost similar with your anxious stuff, right? Like maybe I am just an anxious person. He was like, and one of them, it really always stuck out to me was if it means that I'm an incel for the rest of my life by me being myself, then that's totally fine,
Yeah,
right? It's almost like that level of because and here's the thing, it sounds like maybe it doesn't sound super dramatic. If it doesn't, then congratulations. But to me, at the time, that sounded dramatic because I was still going through all those changes as well. But now it just makes sense. Like it's not a big thing to say that. Like I would be
yeah,
totally okay with that.
yeah.
Like
Just
totally
become a
okay with that.
monk.
Yeah, exactly. Just become a monk. I'll see you later. I'll be in the Himalayas and I'll check back
Yeah,
in just before I die. But other than that, peace out. You know. But even if in the world, like if that was the cost of me truly being myself, of truly having full self-esteem, of being self-validated, or being anti-fragile, then yeah, it's a small price to pay. But it's almost
yeah,
until you get to that level, it's so hard to get your hand out of the cookie jar, isn't it? you know?
And also, when you haven't had any cookies in your entire life, it's like,
Yeah, it's tough to,
I'm going to do whatever I can to get the cookies, whatever it is. So it makes sense. It's kind of
yeah,
maybe some people, including ourselves, needed to build the mask to get the cookies and then realize, okay, maybe I don't want to have cookies this way,
yeah,
if
yeah.
I have to fake it to do it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to your point, like there's no use to feel shame around
Absolutely not.
if you've done something questionable, which is why on this podcast we're revealing that Cameron did in fact kill someone's brother, just like Damon.
It's a joke, by the way, just so everyone
Yeah,
knows.
that's right. Well, Stefan was way worse, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, the proper ripper.
Oh yeah, he was the
This
Ripper.
just becomes a Vampire Diaries podcast. That'd be funny.
Yeah, that's our new pivot. But is there anything else coming up for you on this? Because actually, what I will say is I have a client who came from a bit from that world that we came from, whereas like learning certain behaviors in order to appear a certain way, confident, attractive, magnetic, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it. And he's in a relationship now, great relationship. And a big part of our work together was actually like he would still kind of ask me like behavior questions because he knew the journey that I went on and the people that I was mentored by. Um, and he'd be like, "Oh, what do I do here?" And the job is always to take a step back and look at the principle at what he was asking me.
Yeah,
Like if it's like a conflict, or if it's like a, oh, what should I say this? And it always came from the same thing, which is like, how do I retain my power here, basically.
yeah,
Although it
yeah,
wasn't like on the surface, you wouldn't think it was about power dynamics. And in a sense, it wasn't. It was always about how do I retain my empowerment? Like, how do I
yeah,
still appear strong or competent or attractive and all that kind of stuff? And a big part of the work together was just retaining that trust that you are all of those things anyway. And
mm,
there's nothing you have to do to demonstrate that. And
yeah,
actually, when it comes to navigating, like, let's say this boundary or this conflict, almost always the behavioral answer is to talk about it and to be like,
absolutely.
this is what's going on for me. I don't like that. I don't like it because of this, without using any blaming language. What do you think about this? You know?
Yeah,
Rather than trying to, whenever you're in the mindset of I'm gonna try and win this frame battle, or I'm gonna try and get one over or anything like that, it's done.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
What arises for me is it feels like, and this has been a subtler and subtler change and battle at times for me personally, but for many clients, of whether 1.5 tries to control the 2.0, right? In the stages model, 1.5 being a real
Mm,
active part that's going to do, and then the 2.0 being reciprocity, where we
mm,
first discovered friendship.
yeah.
And so many times I've noticed how I've approached reciprocity is subtly planning ahead, controlling, figuring out what to say, even if it's post using techniques. There was still a subtle future orientation, which is in part ways fine, but part of the beauty of real pure 2.0 is that it's a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. And that's why
Yeah.
we love it. Like when we think of what a 2.0 event, it's like a party. And what's a great
Oh,
party where it's a little bit
yeah.
of chaos
You
and you
don't
don't
know
know
what's
what's
gonna
going to happen. It's going to
happen.
be a surprise. Otherwise, if it wasn't
Yeah.
a surprise, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's why friends are interesting.
Yeah.
That's why when you move from 1.5 to 2.0, you're like, I'm gonna willing to share my toy because friend is so much more fun and
Yeah.
dynamic.
And the
There's
toy.
much more interesting there than the toy, which is static.
Mm,
And yet sometimes it kind of feeds in, and the 1.5 feels either it's going to lose its autonomy, or maybe if it's had something happen in the 2.0 phase, it's like I might lose the reciprocity, so I need to control the reciprocity somehow, right? Whether it's people fearing abandonment or fearing that they're going to be taken advantage of in some way. But when that's really cleaned up, the reciprocity just becomes like this really present,
Mm.
open, fun, exciting experience. And I always envied that in people. I would be both in awe of them and then slightly angry at them. Be like, how are they doing that? What are they doing? What are
That's
they
such a
figuring
funny
out? Yeah,
dichotomy because that's in all triggers, isn't it? More or less. Like you're kind
absolutely.
of really like, wow, that's really cool, and then like getting pissed off at it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, they're amazing. What are they doing? Like my 1.5 parts of me that were trying to control it are like, how do I do that? What's
Mm.
the technique? What are they actually doing
How do
underneath
I
to
break
get
that
that
down?
result?
Yeah,
Yeah, how to break that down? How to make that
yeah.
happen? Right? Really rigid. Yet often a lot of those people, not always, they're just really in that 2.0 reciprocity in a really healthy way where they feel secure in themselves and they're able to engage in that play and that fun and the openness without actually having to control it and being okay if it doesn't work out.
Mm.
If this person doesn't want to hang out more or want to be in relationship with you and just letting the roller coaster of reciprocity just play out however it wants.
Mm. I think a lot of it, if we come back to the idea of self-esteem, like if your self-esteem is dependent on this chaos, like you just beautifully described, then of course it's going to be up and down.
Yeah, of it orientating in a certain way.
Yeah. Of it
Yeah,
being in a certain way, orientating in a certain way, exactly. And whilst I definitely wouldn't call ourselves stable, our identity changes all of the time, so many different emotions and thoughts. It's because self-esteem is something deeper than that. It's some it's something which, like if you really think about it, how could you ever not be enough?
yeah,
How could not even you, how could anybody ever not be enough just as they are? We're not talking about past actions, maybe there's something you regret or what you've been told, all this kind of stuff. I just meant a human being in the moment right now. How could they ever not be enough? It's the same way even as like an animal. Like an animal, if you just see like a cow, like how is that cow like not enough? Because the question
that's
doesn't
it.
even make sense. Like that cow isn't enough. Like what do you mean by that? Like what I'm trying to communicate is it's not like even like a really warm, heartfelt message, or I do feel a lot of warmth when I say it. It's just like nonsensical. Like
Yeah,
how could you say that person is not enough? Okay, maybe they've done some stuff that's questionable, or maybe some really bad stuff. But I'm talking about them as a person when they came into the world, or just them as they are now existing in this moment, because all there is this moment. How could there be any lack in that person?
absolutely. Just in that moment, all we're doing is to create the not enoughness.
Mm,
We're constructing the past, the future, and the idea and the conditions that this means they're not enough. And
yeah,
even the idea of not enough doesn't even make
yeah,
sense to begin with.
yeah. I mean, you could say someone's a good or a bad person. That would make more sense, right? But
Yeah,
just intrinsically not enough as of like not like no self-esteem or that they shouldn't have this whatever doesn't make any sense. And like a lot of our things that you're learning from this, insecurities don't make sense, right?
no,
And it's about,
absolutely not.
I guess, how you would condense that down is if you see with enough clarity about how the insecurity doesn't make sense and it's not got anything to do with you, then it just arises and passes away like it was never there.
Yeah. Even I love, the view from more of a even religious perspective where people are like, well, you were clearly enough for God, that's why you're here.
Mm,
Except some of that feels like it's adding on. It's like adding on a perspective.
Mm,
But I think what you're speaking about, at least what I'm hearing, is this just seems to like this is the only thing that seems to make sense
yeah.
if you stop constructing reality in some way
Mm,
of not enoughness or this or that, because it just doesn't even make sense to do that. Putting these labels on every human that's existed as
yeah.
they grow from a baby. When do we decide that that's the thing? Because no one would do that to a baby
Mm,
unless they're really in a tough place.
yeah.
But the majority of society wouldn't do it to a baby. So when do we start doing that?
Mm,
When's the thing? When's the exact trigger where we start going, okay, now they're not enough for enough? Where we start being judged and rated and we take on those constructs.
yeah.
When do we add that? And what if we just never added it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm.
The ultimate lie of self-esteem is that there's even a question about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just there.
Yeah. Even the idea of self-esteem is kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
inherently flimsy,
self-esteem
isn't it?
for what?
Yeah.
It's like what does self-esteem mean?
I can't
Uh,
even. Do you even remember the last time you thought about it?
no, it seems ridiculous. It's like
Yeah.
for me to orient around self-esteem, I have to construct an idea that I'm being judged in some way by myself and by the world. And I have to construct an idea that there's value that's judged in this magical mind space, which isn't really real. Like where is it? I don't know. Can't
Hmm.
seem to actually catch it with my hand.
Yeah.
And so I'm constructing all of this to then put self-esteem there. But self-esteem is just built on all the previous cards. At the moment you look at them, they're not real.
Yeah.
So self-esteem isn't really real.
Yeah. There you are, guys. You heard it here first. Yeah. Groundbreaking, or you don't even need to think about it in that way. It's just not relevant.
Doesn't even make sense.
Do you have anything else?
No, that's all good for me. I'll just say, if you're watching on my channel, please do check out Aaron's. He's got some amazing stuff, a different flavor, I think, but extremely valuable. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Yeah. Cheers. I got all Cameron's links in the comment below, in the pinned comment below, in the description. Go and check his stuff out. I can't recommend him enough. And we will see you on the next one. Take care.